Hello and welcome to Timeline on Youth Network. I am your host, Sharna Jan. Of course, as always, I have with me in the studio my co-host,
Hannah Mokafa-Dini is always happy to be hosting with Sharon and Timeline, looking at every difficulty facing our world and how we can, of course, solve them.
Of course. Well, today we'll be discussing the topic online versus traditional learning environment. And of course, we have a guest with us in the studio that would venture into this conversation with. We'll be going on a short break, and when we return, Timeline continues. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is Timeline, and we have a guest, just like I stated earlier. He is an education development practitioner, Lucky Owoicho. It's good to have you in the studio with us.
Thank you very much.
It's good to have you.
Likewise, thank you very much.
Yeah, just like I stated, we'll be treating online versus traditional learning environment, and today we'll be exploring, the difference in both approaches. As we all know, we are now in the digital age where technology is taking a huge stand, and of course it's now changing how we learn, how we teach, and basically all of that. Now, due to this new development, what happens to the traditional approach? And that's why we're having this conversation, how we can, to check out the weaknesses of both of the approaches, the strength, and how they can coexist, of course, to make a very good educational balance, right, Omokafi?
Yes, talking about coexisting, we have to look beyond not just being able to access online and traditional educational environments, but also how people can still be able to access equitable education, inclusive education, and also quality education, which is one of the central themes of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal, SDG4.
Exactly. Well, Lucky, let's come to you. Tell us, what are the core differences between the online versus traditional learning system in our days educational?
All right. Thank you very much for having me. So online, like the name implies, it's actually a model where you get to learn online. Okay. And in recent times, we've seen a good number of people actually venture online to learn courses, and even to the extent of even doing a master's program, as beautiful as it is as well. So online is basically learning online, and most times it can be self-paced, it can be live as well. The traditional is actually where teachers actually have engagement with the learners as well, physically. So yeah, pretty much online is actually something that is hosted online, like the name implies. Traditional is the traditional method of learning.
Very simple term. Yeah. Love that.
Yeah. One thing I like about traditional learning is the fact that it allows you room to be able to converse with your fellow classmates. As much as online gives you that kind of, classroom message chats, but it's not, I don't think it's that,
the touch is different. So while I was coming here and thinking about the whole thing, I just noticed that I know a good number of people, especially in our generation at the moment, they've pivoted to the online kind of learning. But in reality, that's just my thoughts. There's that human-centric relationship you have with your teacher or with other learners. Sometimes it's not really about what the teacher is teaching you. Sometimes it's about the learners with you. Most times we learn from our peers in most cases. Why online gives you the opportunity, but I feel it doesn't give that holistic, it doesn't give you in full details. Okay. And in most cases, there are several challenges that might lead to you not getting it the way I might have the conversation with you on a physical class, maybe due to internet. There are several issues.
We're going to get to that.
I'll go to that. Yeah.
Yes, now let's even go straight into that now. What are the major weaknesses of both sides? So if I want to go into online learning, or if I want to go into traditional learning, what are some of the weaknesses that I should look out for before going into it?
Okay, so first things first, I would say that one of the major things that we need to pay attention to be able to actually have like an online learning is the infrastructure in place. And I'm speaking as someone who works in some of these underserved communities with children and the likes. So infrastructure in the sense that before you want to ensure that online learning takes place, for example, you need to have like the right devices, internet also. In recent time, we see what these guys are doing with our networks, you get. So I feel like infrastructure is very important. Yeah. But for traditional, what you just need is the teacher who is not legible enough to actually teach you. Do you understand? But also in recent times, other initiatives find a way to balance both together, a kind of hybrid sense of learning, whereby they bring in the online methodology and also the traditional way inside as well. So in a way, you are trying to balance both together, and the learners in a way can have that physical encounter or that physical touch with the teachers in itself. So in a way, two of them are not bad in a way. So it's how well we are able to balance both together. You get, because in some contexts you cannot use online learning. Let's not in some contexts. When I say in some contexts, I mean in some communities, for example, where there is no internet. How do you want to bring in an online kind of learning for them? Because the idea for learning is for it to be inclusive, for everybody to actually as well be able to learn, regardless of your economic and several backgrounds you get.
Interesting. Let's talk about accessibility for a moment. You see, online platforms like Coursera, Udemy, they help, people to access a lot of courses through their platforms. Now, you talked about inclusivity, right?
Yeah.
How does online learning helps give accessibility to education, especially those in remote areas?
So for those in remote areas, it's quite dicey, and it's actually more like a disadvantage to them. Because first things first, if I stay in a rural community where I don't have access to the internet, and even if I have a device, there's probably not going to be electricity to actually charge my device. That's like I've played myself 3-0 like that. You get, meaning that either there's device but there's no internet, or there's device and there's no electricity to actually charge the device when I'm down and I need to actually learn on Coursera or Udemy, for example. That in itself is actually limiting me from actually getting that full potential. Although someone in urban community, in an urban society, can actually learn very well, maybe because the infrastructure in place is already well set for the person, and it's good to go. Because if I have every device, I have electricity, I have internet, what's stopping me from actually learning online? Do you get, instead of just randomly going to classes to learn? You get. So I feel like in that context you made mention of, the challenges are actually enormous. You get to be able to assess some of these things.
How possible do you think it is for people who are in urban societies to be able to choose between online learning and traditional learning? So do you think if I and Sharon right now are given the choice to pick between both, and we have access to all of those tools that is necessary for us to learn online, what do you think would be?
So at this point, I feel it boils down to your individual preference. And I'll speak to the fact that I know people who actually live in urban settings and they don't see learning online as something that we want to venture into. That's because, one, it takes a lot of commitment to actually learn online. I know you sitting here now, you might have several online courses that you are yet to finish. And that's because sometimes when you go to a class physically, you have that teacher that actually puts you on that pedestal to say you need to learn and all those things. But when you sign up for an online course, regardless of whether it's being paid for or it's free, sometimes life just happens and you just drift away. But if I'm to say, based on the current realities at the moment, I feel like online learning is something that is very important. It's actually one of the best. I will not say best. It's one approach I feel like we should also try to venture into more. And a lot of people actually learn. People are actually doing their degrees. You get master degrees online.
MIT,
Harvard. Do you get? So in a way, online learning has actually bridged that gap for us as individuals, as learners. And speaking about the urban setting and the ICT learning, so my work is focused on digital skills for women and girls.
Okay.
And basically from the work I've done so far, reaching out to some of these public schools, we see that some of them have some of these devices, computers, but in a way, the computers, they just have it as like a museum, like an artifact in a museum kind of thing. But in a way, the true sense is they really don't learn some of these things. And if they are learning, the learning just comes from the the basic computer science learning. But what we do is to actually teach them based on the curriculum. And one of the things we'll come to understand is even the teachers in themselves, they are not so equipped enough to actually step down that knowledge for them to be able to learn as it should. So the overlying factor of everything is boils down to learning. If you keep the teacher very well, definitely the learners are going to learn. So what that means is you could also bring in an online kind of setting in a traditional way, balance both together, you get. And in a way, you'll be able to achieve what you want to achieve, do you get? So at the end of the day, it boils down to what you want to achieve from the kind of learning. Because if as a teacher, I don't have that knowledge that the online platform is going to give me, it's just the best thing or the commonsensical thing to do is just to leverage on the knowledge the online setting is going to give me, the knowledge from people who have actually recorded some of the sessions that I can as well, the teachers, the learners can as well leverage on. Yeah.
Interesting. You know, we're trying to strike a balance, and of course that's what we are focused on, because as it stands now, in as much as technology is taking a stand, just like I said earlier, the traditional approach is still not going to fade away, of course. So we are trying to see how we can bring both of them in check and work with them. Now let's talk about engagement. Right. We see that traditional learning encourages instant feedback, maybe group presentation, basically all of that. And then we have that of online that would push for, digital participation. Sometimes they even use animation as a means for, breakout sections and basically all of that. Now, when it comes to engagement, how does the student experience different feedback when it comes to traditional and online, learning experience? Because when you pick a student that has been learning in the traditional way all through her life, and then, okay, let's not even go far, let's take the Gen Zs and maybe baby bloomers, because during their time, it was strictly traditional learning. And now we have more of Gen Zs that literally you tell somebody, oh, I've gotten a master's, I'm like 2 masters, and tell, how did you do it? Oh, from my home, I just used my system and, got the certificates. Tell us, what are the different experiences or expectations we would definitely see from these two set of people that I used as examples?
So I'll speak about first, one of the reasons, like the two comparison we gave, baby boomers and Gen Zs, I guess first things first is accessibility. In the sense that for someone to actually get 2 masters maybe on a sitting, some can actually do it consistently or together, do you get? So what that means is it has given a sense of accessibility. I can do 2 masters on the go by learning online, for example. It just boils down to how you balance some of these things. And from a traditional point of view, it comes with a lot of infrastructure ways where you have to be in class. And in situations of learning, you cannot be in 2 classes at the same time. You have to either be here or be there. So that in a way has actually put a kind of bridge in between. Do you understand? So at the end of the day, it boils down to the accessibility. And as regards to the part where you spoke about how well you engage with the learner. So for the online kind of learning, it also boils down to how well these online platforms are being created for people to learn. So I know maybe you might have an experience previously. Maybe you actually applied for an online class and you were supposed to be, and you just found it very boring and not maybe something you could not relate with at the end of the day. But you will also find another one that might be very engaging. So it's how well these creators actually create these classes for people, for learners. Because learners in a way learners like excitement while they are learning as well. So I remember an experience trying to go teach digital skills to a group of learners in a public school. And every time they see us bring a laptop to the school, they are very excited. Excited that they want the other traditional class that they learn to just end. Let us face, because having a laptop, you've not seen a laptop before and you want to try learning. But in a way, that's like bringing a laptop to a traditional setting. That's why I brought about the hybrid, because in a way, these learners cannot actually have access to some of these things. So in a way, it's just we trying to bring in a balance, bring it online and a traditional sense together. So that's we are marrying both together and ensure that it actually works. Because it's important we first of all understand the kind of people that we want to engage. It's when you understand the kind of learning that will be best fit for them that you not tailor the best fit kind of learning for them. Do you understand that?
Of course we do.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lucky. This is quite interesting.
Thank you.
But we have to go on a short break. We'll be going on a short break now, and when we return, Omo Cafe will take us through the social commentary. Stay with us.
Culture connects us beyond borders. It's a bridge between traditions, creativity, and the future.
Culture is alive, shaping identities and communities every day.
Art tells stories of resilience and vision.
Artists blend tradition with innovation.
Cultural preservation creates sustainability and empowerment.
Culture evolves and adapts.
Music and dance unites communities through movement.
And right here, in the heart of our cities, artists and creators are keeping these cultures alive.
On Culture Cove, let's explore,
Celebrate and preserve the arts and culture that define us.
Welcome back. This is Timeline. Omo Cafe, over to you.
Yes, since we've been talking about online learning versus traditional learning environments, and it has been quite insightful. You know, we've had so many countries across the world who have championed online learning, and they have seen it done tremendously well in with their educational system. Take, for example, India. I know that a lot of people say that what they learn in their classes just moves out of their head, but then the ones that the Indian tutors on YouTube, you know, have been able to teach them sticks better than the ones they learned via their professors and teachers. But away from that, let's look at what people are talking about as regards online learning and also traditional learning environments. This one is from Oli by Olympus Insights. Says that for more than a century, learning barely changed. Today, education is becoming personal, adaptive, and borderless. From chalkboards to chatbots, we are building a world where anyone can learn anything, anywhere, and at their own pace. This is just the beginning. This particular tweet is taking us into exactly where the world is going right now. That as much as we still have traditional classrooms, we definitely have to embrace learning via our systems and by ourselves, because there are lots of people who are putting content out there on the internet space, right?
Yeah, very true. And I feel like this is actually very valid. But like this also buttressed on the point I spoke about the right infrastructure in place, because for you to learn from a chalkboard to chatbots, it means there's a level of accessibility to the right devices, for example, and the various things I made mention of, like internet, electricity, and the likes. And in a country like ours, there's just a whole lot of challenges we face. So trying to solve some of this problem means we have to solve it from a very ground level, from the root cause of it. And if we say we just want to focus on online learning, it means we are going to leave a whole lot of people behind. And this is just the reality, because I'm not speaking as someone who is just in an urban setting alone. I'm speaking as someone who I know that there are thousands of people in that rural community, in my village, in your village, that would not have access to some of these online learning, some of this great infrastructure. Yeah, the fact that, yes, we know that some of these learnings are actually valid and something that is going to be very tangible and very, very vital for them. But at the same time, it's accessibility we are speaking about at this point. Yeah.
Well, you know, we have to look at the background. We have to look at the grassroots to ensure that they have accessibility.
Yeah.
Okay, let's look at our second tweet before we move on to other questions. And this one is from Brad Johnson. It says that we can do Zoom classes and online activities, and yes, they are better than nothing, but they certainly don't replace the in-person teacher and student interactions and engagement in the classroom. That's where the magic happens.
Yeah.
Do you think online cannot replace this? How about, chat boxes in Zoom classes?
Well, first of all, kudos to Brad. So I feel like, yeah, there's no how it's, regardless of how well you try to cook the whole online spaces, there's something about online interaction you have with people whereby, and sometimes even the teachers, have you ever thought of it that, have you ever maybe go through memory lane from your primary school to your secondary school? There might be that thing that your teacher taught you that you might not remember from the books, but there's something that teacher said, maybe by way of their experience, and it still stuck with you. On online classes, there's a level of, it depends anyway, there's a level of interaction you might want to have with your learners that you might not get although these things are actually subjective anyway, but I just feel like in-person teacher and student relationship is something that would work better than Zoom classes and online activities.
Yeah.
Because sometimes this major thing, internet is something that I feel like would also hurt some of these things we are speaking about. Yeah.
Well, just to add to what you said, interaction with people is kind of psychological, and I know psychologists would better be in the best position to explain this. And you talked about memory, and I just wanted to drop a few points. You talked about just picking a photo album and like seeing there's this good memory that comes with it. Yeah. Now I'm not saying, of course, we know that you get to keep some memories of your online interaction, also which can also be deleted. Just as albums can also get missing and all of that. But when you talk about durability, let's give it to the online. But of course, I think our parents or baby bloomers, I would say, have been able to keep memories in albums for a very long time. And sometimes you pick it and you get to see your, interaction with some of your mates back then. And there's this joy that comes with it. There's this nostalgic feeling that you get. Permit me to say it's almost impossible, which is not a fact, to get that kind of feeling from, online interaction. And this is not me trying to pick a side. This is me stating how I think it feels right. Well, let's move on. Okay. It's interesting that we're talking about both approaches, right?
Yeah.
But the main center of the issue now is money.
Yeah.
So if you have both of it given to you, your finances would better pick the one that works for you, right?
Yeah,
so as an education development practitioner, I would like you to tell us which of it is most cost effective, not just for the student, but also for the parent. And are there any hidden charges, hidden costs? Because you will say, I want to buy my outline, I want to do this. So tell us which of it has, or which of the approaches have more hidden charges to it?
More hidden charges. So if I'm to speak from a long-term view, I feel like if we go the online, it's going to be much more cost effective.
Okay.
If I, for example, get everything needed for me to learn online in perspective already, meaning I'm getting my devices, I'm getting everything in place to learn. It means that learner can actually learn for a period and might not need to actually get involved with paying for some certain things. But if from a traditional point of view, if that person is going that way, it means that learner has to keep paying for school fees, keep going to school, maybe transportation and some other things you get. But at the same time, when we put both on the same scale, we now look at it that which is actually much more better for the learner. Do you get? But if I'm to speak on the cost effectiveness based on the learner, you get. I feel that, like what I said from the onset, it boils down to what best suits the learner.
Yeah.
You get. And yeah, that's basically my thoughts on the cost effectiveness. But if, for example, an organization, for example, trying to put some of those two things in perspective, if I have a recorded sessions, for example, of all my classes, it's going to be much more cost effective for me to run. Do you get? But at this point, we are speaking about the learner's point of view.
Of course.
Do you get?
Yeah.
Do you think that there are skills that can be learned perfectly online compared to traditional learning? Because let's take, for example, if I want to transition from a non-tech job to a full tech job, I can go and learn some tech skills, which will turn me to a pro, let's say 9 months, on Khan Academy, on Commercial Bootcamp, those kind of online learning platforms that allows me to be able to access thousands of courses across the particular subjects that I want to learn. So do you think that there are some specific skills that will allow me better exposure and better knowledge compared to when I decide to learn them traditionally?
Yeah, so with the advancement of the digital landscape and everything, I feel like to be able to transition from non-tech to tech, for example, learning online is something that I will give kudos to, the fact that you'll be able to learn very well. And that's because a good number of resources and a very good resources, you get them online in most of the times. And not to say that people who teach in physical classes, for example, are not good enough. But most of the times, even these people actually learn from some of these people who actually you learn online from. So in a way, yeah, I feel like it's just how well you'll be able to marry both of them together and balance both together. Because I've seen scenarios whereby people actually opt for physical classes to learn tech skills, for example, over online classes. And you ask them why, they will say because they feel there's a sense of accountability they actually will give to learning, other than just sitting down at home to learn, because life happens, so many things happen, and you just get carried away with one thing or the other. But if we find a way to, I'm still speaking on the fact that we can marry both together, a hybrid kind of system, whereby I could learn online, but at the same time, if I need more clarity on something and I need a sense of mentorship to actually guide me through, I just meet someone physically to say, okay, I went through these classes online, but I need this, I need something that I need more clarity on. And that person physically will guide me through the process with no itches. And that's not to say you cannot get that online, but just to speak about accessibility, balance as well. Yeah.
Interesting. Let's move on to the future of education. I love the fact that you keep saying balance and balance, but now I want you to just give us, if that is what you feel. You know, you earlier mentioned when we were having the conversation, the fact that there are just some things that, in as much as you can learn literally everything online, there are some things you just need, like, you know, at the moment learning. I had a conversation with a lady that wanted to learn how to make adire. Now she had all the liberty to, you know, go online and learn and all of that, but she traveled to the place at Abeokuta. Yeah, she had to travel there to meet the indigents so they could teach her their way, their knowledge, and basically all of that. And guess what? This lady is not even a Westerner, so you should know that it took her a lot of, you know, she had to resources and all of that to be able to travel all the way there to get hands-on knowledge of what they do. And she's doing amazingly well. I think she's really doing well in that field right now. Now we see things like tie and dye. Let's even move to healthcare training and all of that, workmanship, or what is it called? You know, you actually need to see the process being done.
Apprenticeship.
Yeah, you need to see the process being done. So not that you can't learn it online. I'm just stating that fact. But you know, I think you can't just take out the fact that when you see it being done and you replicate what that person is doing at that moment, I think that's an amazing thing, right? And for online, we see coding, we see maybe graphics design. Those are things that you could literally just learn online. You don't have to, and you come out amazing. So now let's talk about that balancing, because looking at the future, that's why we're having this conversation, right? We don't want to throw any away, because both have served us in tremendous ways. Do you think the way this is going, in the future, let's use 5 years for an instance, you think we could literally mix them up, we could literally balance them and work with traditional and also work with online?
Yeah, just to speak to the future now, let me start with your first example. I like that example because that person who traveled all the way to Abeokuta, for example, to learn that particular skill. She's not just learning the skill alone. She's learning a whole lot of things, the business behind it. She's learning their culture. She's learning how well she can actually be better. Trust me, I don't think a YouTube video will be able to teach her better than her. But to speak about the future, I feel the future of education definitely is tending towards the online learning.
Okay.
But in the future, if I'm to create that future, or if I'm to envision that future, I feel a lot of people will actually be left behind if the right infrastructure is not actually put in place for them to be able to learn.
So that's a policy the government have to work.
Yes, have to work in.
Yeah.
And it comes with a whole lot of things, which I speak about. If some of these things we get into that future, it means people in rural communities will not be able to learn. And there are more people, I feel there are more people in the rural communities than people in the urban settings. In terms of there are more people who need to learn, because truly we need to actually have a balance whereby people in rural communities can learn and people in urban settings school can as well learn. But I know that definitely the future of education is actually tending towards that direction, online settings, whereby I could just sit down in my class and in the comfort of my home, also working, for example, and I could also be doing like a master's degree, a PhD program or something. You get. So I feel that future is actually we are actually on that path to actually getting into that future. But to speak about the fact that as beautiful as that future might be, so that future of somebody or for a group of people is not an issue to other set of people. And that's where, like you said, policy has to put in place, a lot of infrastructure has to be in place for some certain things to be at the same level for learning to actually happen for everyone.
We have had countries like South Korea, champion such kind of courses in the sense that they decided to come up with a policy that's called National Smart Education, where they ensured that they were able to pump a lot of money into ensuring that everybody has access to inclusive digital textbooks and also inclusive digital online classes where they can learn very well. And this is leading to, a breakout of amazing students in their country.
Well, this has been quite an interesting conversation. I love the fact that we're able to stand on the point that there could be a balance, right, with the online versus traditional learning environment. Thank you once again, Lucky. It was interesting having you on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, that's where we draw the line on timeline. Just as we've stated, we can definitely strike a balance between online versus traditional learning experience. I know you want that too, just as much as I want that. Well, I remain your host, Sharon Ajay.
And I'm Hannah, more Cafedinians. Remember that everything is possible. Online learning is possible, traditional learning is possible, but we also have to make it equitable, accessible, and also quality enough.
Yeah, until next time, see you again.